Usually when we sit down to look at a stack of research on heart health, it kind of feels like we're reading from the same old script. The usual suspects.
I mean, the big three.
Exactly. Yeah. The big three. Watch your cholesterol, keep your blood pressure down, and, for the love of everything, stop smoking.
And look, that advice is the gold standard for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not knocking it.
It is. Tackling those three things has saved millions of lives. It's the foundation of modern cardiology.
But, and there's always a but on this show, what if there's a fourth pillar of risk? Something that's pervasive, largely invisible, and honestly something most regular doctors haven't really been looking for.
That is exactly what we are unpacking today. And we're not just speculating here. We are doing a deep dive into a huge scientific statement from the American Heart Association.
The title of the report is a bit of a mouthful: Contaminant Metals as Cardiovascular Risk Factors. But the implications are just massive. We were talking about environmental cardiology,
which is a fascinating and still pretty new field. It's the intersection of toxicology, the study of poisons, and heart health.
And the mission for this deep dive is to really understand how three specific metals, lead, cadmium, and arsenic, are silently driving things like heart disease and stroke.
And the scary part, the part that really stood out, is these aren't some rare Bond villain poisons.
Right. We're not talking about radioactive isotopes.
These are things found in everyday life.
So let's dive in. The AHA report zeroes in on three main culprits: lead, cadmium, and arsenic.
Right. And before we get into each one, I think it's important to frame this for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Most people hear heavy metals, and they think of, a massive industrial accident. Yeah. Flint, Michigan. A factory explosion.
Something big and obvious.
But the AHA is highlighting low-level chronic exposure, the kind that happens over a lifetime, just by living in the modern world.
So it's not a sudden poisoning, it's a slow burn, a gradual accumulation. Okay, let's start with lead, because I feel like most people, myself included, kind of think we solved lead.
I hope so.
We took it out of paint in the 70s. We took it out of gasoline. Isn't lead a problem of the past?
It's true that public health regulations, like the Clean Air Act, massively reduced airborne lead. The charts are incredible. Blood lead levels in the population have just plummeted since the 80s. But here's the nuance. Legacy doesn't mean gone.
What do you mean by that?
Lead's an element. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't break down into something harmless. It just sits there.
So the lead from car exhausts in 1980 is still in the soil.
It's still in the soil near highways. It's in the dust in our cities.
So we're literally walking around in the ghosts of past pollution.
Precisely. It's in the soil, dust from old paint, old water pipes. But the report also mentioned some surprising modern sources. It's found its way into some spices, cosmetics, even electronics recycling.
Okay, but here's the part that really stopped me in my tracks. The report talked about body burden. It sounds like even if I went to live in a pristine bubble today, I might still be at risk from my own past.
This is the most fascinating and frankly insidious aspect of lead. Lead is what we call a bone seeker.
A bone seeker? That sounds like a horror movie title.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But chemically, to your body, lead looks suspiciously like calcium.
Ah.
So when you ingest it, your body grabs it, thinks it's useful, and stores it where it stores calcium, specifically in the tibia and the patella.
Wait, my shin bone and my kneecap are storing toxic metal.
They are. And the half-life of lead and bone is decades. We're talking 20, 30 years.
So the exposure you had 30 years ago is still sitting in your skeleton today?
Yes. Maybe from breathing leaded gasoline fumes as a kid or peeling paint in an old apartment. It's still there.
Okay, so it's stored away. Does it just stay there? Or does it come back to haunt you?
That's the problem. It doesn't stay quiet. The report highlights that during periods of high bone turnover like pregnancy or menopause or just developing osteoporosis as you age, the bone breaks down.
And when the bone breaks down?
It releases that stored lead right back into your bloodstream.
So you're essentially self-dosing with lead from 1985.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
And that circulating lead then attacks the blood vessels. It helps explain why we see heart issues in older adults that don't seem to line up with their current environment.
Wow. It's coming from inside the house?
It is.
That is terrifying. Okay, let's move on to the second metal, cadmium. I know cadmium is in batteries, but unless I'm snacking on AAs, how does this get into us?
Well, the biggest source, historically, is tobacco smoke.
Including secondhand smoke.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The tobacco plant is incredibly efficient at sucking cadmium up from the soil and just packing it into the leaves.
Okay, so add that to the very long list of reasons to quit smoking. But what if you've never smoked a day in your life?
This is where it gets really interesting and a little concerning for health-conscious folks. Cadmium is in our food. Specifically, it's in phosphate fertilizers used in commercial agriculture.
Fertilizer, so we're putting it on our crops on purpose.
Inadvertently, yes. Phosphate rock, which we mine for fertilizer, naturally contains cadmium. So when farmers use it, they're also adding small amounts of cadmium to the soil.
And certain plants really absorb it.
They do. Root vegetables and leafy greens.
Like what?
Potatoes, onions, spinach, lettuce.
Hold on. You're telling me that eating a salad, the very thing I'm supposed to do to protect my heart, could be a risk factor.
Okay, I want to be really careful here.
Please.
I am not telling anyone to stop eating vegetables. The nutritional benefits, the fiber, the vitamins still vastly outweigh the risks.
Right.
But it shows how pervasive this is. You can't just lifestyle your way out of it entirely. You can eat a perfect vegan diet and still accumulate cadmium.
And like lead, I'm guessing it sticks around.
It does. It builds up in the kidneys and the liver, and the half-life is anywhere from 15 to 30 years. It's a squatter. It moves in and refuses to leave.
All right, number 3, arsenic. This one feels very Victorian-era poison to me, like something out of an old murder mystery.
It has that reputation. But today, the primary source is groundwater. Millions of people, including here in the U.S., rely on private wells for their water.
And those aren't regulated like city water, are they?
Exactly. Municipal water is strictly tested. But if you have a private well, no one's testing it unless you do. And if your well sits on bedrock that has naturally occurring arsenic, which is common in New England, the Midwest, the Southwest, you're drinking it every day.
And it's not just water, right? I saw rice mentioned in the source material.
Yes, rice is unique because it's grown in flooded paddies. So it absorbs arsenic from the water much more efficiently than other grains. Apple juice is another one that's been flagged.
Now, arsenic is different from the other two, right? It doesn't stay in the body for decades.
Correct. You excrete it relatively quickly through urine, but, and this is a big but, because the exposure is often environmental, like your daily drinking water, you're just constantly topping up the tank. It's a chronic daily pulse of toxicity.
And there was a really interesting bit about genetics in the report, too.
Yes. This is where you see personalized medicine start to peek in. The body has an enzyme to help metabolize arsenic, to tag it to get flushed out. And the data shows some people, specifically women, seem to be genetically more efficient at this.
So 2 people could drink the same water, and one gets hurt more because their internal cleanup crew is slow.
That's the idea, yeah.
So we have lead in our bones, cadmium in our veggies, and arsenic in our water. Now, the big question, why does the heart care? What are they actually doing to the cardiovascular system?
This is the real aha moment of the report.
Yeah.
It explains the mechanism. It's not just random damage. It's a case of molecular identity theft.
Identity theft.
They call it molecular mimicry. Let's take lead again. To your body, lead looks just like calcium. And calcium is essential for muscle contraction, for signaling in your blood vessels. When lead shows up, it basically pushes calcium out of the way and takes its spot.
But lead can't do calcium's job.
Not at all. It jams the machinery. It causes the vessels to constrict, drives up blood pressure. It's like putting the wrong key in a lock. It fits, but it won't turn, and now you can't get it out.
And what about cadmium? Who is it impersonating?
Cadmium mimics zinc, and zinc is crucial for our antioxidant enzymes, the good guys that clean up cellular damage. When cadmium takes zinc's place, those enzymes just stop working.
So the body's defense system shuts down.
That's a great way to put it. And the result of all this is oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. This leads to something called endothelial dysfunction.
Okay, let's unpack that term. We hear it a lot. Endothelial dysfunction.
The endothelium is the inner lining of your blood vessels. Think of it like the nonstick coating on a frying pan. It needs to be smooth and slippery.
Right.
These metals damage that lining. They make it inflamed and sticky.
So instead of a nonstick pan, you've got a rusty cast iron skillet.
Exactly. The vessels can't relax properly, which drives up blood pressure. And because the surface is sticky, it encourages plaque atherosclerosis to build up.
So it's not just clogging the pipes, it's rotting the pipes from the inside out.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the clinical evidence. We know the mechanism, but
No.
Do we see the bodies? Is there hard data linking these metals to actual heart attacks?
The evidence is robust. The AHA statement is full of epidemiological studies with hundreds of thousands of people. We see strong links with ischemic heart disease, that's coronary artery disease and heart attacks. We see it with stroke.
And there was a specific condition you mentioned that really stood out to me, PAD. peripheral artery disease.
Yes, this is a major finding. PA is poor circulation in the legs from clogged arteries. It can be incredibly painful, and in severe cases, it leads to amputation.
And the data shows a really strong link between cadmium and lead and PAD.
Very strong. And arsenic has its own weird, specific effect on the legs, too.
The non-compressible arteries thing.
Right. It's a signature of arsenic toxicity. It makes the arteries in the legs stiffen and calcify so much that a doctor literally cannot squeeze the artery shut with a blood pressure cuff.
That is such a visceral image. Rigid pipes in your legs.
It is. And just to be clear for everyone listening,
Yeah.
we aren't just talking about people who work in battery factories.
That's the key question. Is this an occupational risk or a general population risk?
That is the most important takeaway. The report emphasizes there is no clear safe threshold. We're seeing these effects at low to moderate exposure levels found in the general population.
That is so unsettling. But it also leads us to a really important part of this, environmental justice. Because while everyone is exposed, the report makes it very clear that not everyone is exposed equally.
No, they are not. Metal exposure is a massive social determinant of health. The data is clear. Communities of color and lower-income populations have disproportionately higher levels of these metals in their bodies.
And the reasons are structural, aren't they? It's not just bad luck.
It's absolutely structural. It's about where you live. If you live near a major roadway or an industrial site, you're breathing more of this. If you live in older housing, you're dealing with lead paint and lead pipes.
And if you're in a rural, lower-income area, you might be relying on that unregulated well water with arsenic.
Exactly. Even diet plays a role. We talk about food deserts. If your access to a variety of fresh foods is limited, you might rely more on rice or other foods that carry a higher contaminant load.
It really reframes how we look at health disparities. We often look at different rates of heart disease and blame lifestyle or genetics, but this suggests a huge chunk of that gap is actually pollution.
That's the critical insight. We might be blaming the patient for their lifestyle when the reality is they're being poisoned by their zip code. It changes how we have to think about prevention.
Okay, I feel like we've sufficiently scared everyone. We know the metals, we know they wreck our arteries, and we know it's happening at low levels. Please tell me there are solutions.
There is hope. First, we have to acknowledge that public health works. Since we removed lead from gasoline, cardiovascular death rates have dropped significantly. Regulation is the most effective medicine we have.
So we need tighter rules on food and water.
Absolutely. But there's also a really exciting medical frontier here. Have you heard of chelation therapy?
I have, but mostly for, like, acute poisoning. A kid swallows a lead toy, something like that. Can it work for chronic heart disease?
That is the billion-dollar question. Chelation uses a medication EDT that binds to metals in the bloodstream.
Like a chemical claw.
A perfect description. It moves through the blood, grabs onto lead and cadmium, and pulls them out through the kidneys.
And there was a big trial mentioned, right? The TAT trial.
Yes, the trial to assess chelation therapy, TAT-CT. It was a large randomized trial funded by the NIH. And honestly, when it started, a lot of cardiologists were very skeptical.
They thought it was fringe science.
They did. But the results were shocking, actually. The study showed an overall 18% reduction in cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, death for people who got chelation.
18% is huge. That's comparable to some of our best meds.
It is. But here is where it gets really crazy. They did a subgroup analysis on patients with diabetes.
And what did they find?
In people with diabetes, there was a 41% reduction in cardiovascular events.
41%. That's better than almost any drug on the market.
It's remarkably effective in that group. The theory is that people with diabetes are already under so much oxidative stress, so removing the extra damage from metals gives them this massive benefit.
So why isn't this standard of care? Why can't I go to my doctor and ask for a metal detox 5E?
Because science is slow and cautious, as it should be. The medical community wants to see it replicated, so there is a TAC-CT2 study happening right now to confirm it. If TAC-CT2 shows the same thing, it could fundamentally change how we treat heart disease in diabetics.
And I assume you aren't suggesting people go out and try to find this on their own.
Definitely not. And I would strongly advise against unapproved therapies at wellness clinics. This has to be done under strict medical supervision.
So while we wait for TAC-CT2, what can people do right now? What's the action plan?
There are practical steps. Number 1, if you smoke, stop. If you vape, stop.
Wait, even vaping?
Yes. E-cigarettes are metal delivery systems. The heating coils are made of metal, and they can leach nickel, chromium, and lead into the vapor you inhale deep into your lungs.
That's a really important point. Vaping is not a clean alternative here. What about water?
If you're on a private well, test it. Don't guess. If you're on city water but in an older house, get a water filter that's certified look for NSF certification for lead removal. Not all filters do it.
And diet.
Be mindful of rice. Maybe rinse it thoroughly before cooking. And vary your grains. Generally, a diet rich in essential minerals, calcium, zinc, iron, can help.
The musical chair strategy, right.
Exactly. If your body has enough of the good metals filling the seats, it's less likely to absorb the bad mimics.
Keep the seats occupied so the imposters can't sit down.
Precisely. But the biggest gap right now is monitoring. Pediatricians test kids for lead all the time. But when was the last time your doctor tested your blood for cadmium?
Never. I don't think I've ever had that test.
Right. There are no standard guidelines for testing adults for these metals to prevent heart disease. The AHA report is essentially a call to action to change that.
It really feels like we're at a turning point. We've spent 50 years obsessing over cholesterol and biology. It seems like the next 50 might be about cleaning up our environment.
I think that's the inevitable direction. You cannot have a healthy heart in a sick environment.
So to wrap this up, heart disease isn't just about what you eat or how much you run. It's about the invisible chemistry of your environment.
And it's about recognizing that pollution is a medical issue, not just an ecological one.
So here's the thought I want to leave you with today. We spend billions developing new pills to lower cholesterol. But if we treated environmental pollution as aggressively as we treat high cholesterol, could we unlock a massive drop in global heart disease without prescribing a single new pill?
That is the ultimate preventative medicine.
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious and take care of yourselves.
See you next time.